Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried & Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. I was thinking of a quote today by Rumi. He's a 13th century Persian poet, and he said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I was going to change the world, but today I am wise, and I'm going to change myself." And this describes my current guest that's going to be on today. His name's Coss Marte. Coss, thank you for joining us.
No, I appreciate you having me, Todd.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you bet, man. You guys are in for a treat today. If you think you can't change your circumstances or better your life, think again. Coss is a perfect example that you can do anything, no matter what you've been through and no matter how hard your life's been. I'd like to get a shout out to our sponsors, Siegfried & Jensen, Wasatch Recovery, Drew Peterson, I Heal Institute, and Living Recovery Interventions. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for supporting me and supporting this great cause. And then thanks again to all of you for tuning in week after week. We're trending and we're ranked in the top 100 now in mental health because of you guys. So thank you so much. And I love you. Little background on Coss. He was sent to jail as a ringleader of a multi-million dollar drug operation. And he was also grossly overweight and was warned by his physician that his current lifestyle, if left unchecked, would likely kill him. Faced with that prognosis, Coss got into shape with the tools that he had, which was a prison cell and his body weight. Within 6 months, he lost over 70 pounds. And we're going to talk a lot about this. And he also helped other inmates, 20 others specifically, to also lose a weight. I think you combined weight lost was over 1,000 pounds. And, and then he launched a company called CONBODY. He is the CEO and founder and creator of this. It's a prison style boot camp that has gained over 70,000 clients, and he's hired over 50 formerly incarcerated individuals, and you have 0% recidivism, which is amazing. Which means, if you don't know what that word means, because I wasn't quite sure what it meant either, it just means they don't go back to their former behavior, the criminal behavior. Coss has been on the Ellen DeGeneres show. He's a 3-time TED Talk speaker. He's been on NBC, CNN, the New York Times, Men's Health, and just doing all these amazing things. And I'm just so honored to have him on today. So Coss, thank you again for being on our show.
No, I appreciate the opportunity here. Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us where you grew up? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Yes, I grew up in the Lower East Side of New York City. It was a very heavily infested drug neighborhood. My mom immigrated from the Dominican Republic when she was pregnant with me, and we ended up in this neighborhood in the 80s, and it was just there were heroin lines. Like heroin was like, and crack was just a huge epidemic over here. I remember going to school and just seeing people lining up to buy drugs coming out of my building.
Right.
I'm talking about lines of like 50 to 100 people.
Wow.
Wrapped around the block. Every 10 steps you took, there was a heroin needle there. It was just, growing up, one of my good friends who we used to rollerblade around the neighborhood, like he fell on the heroin needle and got stuck and got hepatitis off of it, So it was that drug infested, just to picture that. But as a kid, I was very ambitious. I wanted money. I thought money was everything for me. I grew up, basically sleeping on the couch with my mom. And it was about 7 of us in the apartment.
Oh, wow.
At all times in a tenement apartment. So it was just a small living quarters and in a 500 square foot space. And so we were basically on top of each other, and my mom, was hustling, not hustling drugs, but she was like just hustling the right way, trying to, do the right thing, working, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs. But that gave me opportunity to just be in the streets, with having no real childcare, my childcare was the streets. And the people that were on the corner dealing drugs, those were, some of them were my older cousins, and who I, followed, who I idled at the time. And I followed in their footsteps. At 11, I started smoking weed, and at 13, I started dealing. And there's where everything went down into a spiral. I was incarcerated 6 times, 9 times total, but 6 times as an adult. And I as a kid, people would ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I would tell them I wanted to be rich. And I felt like the world of drugs was the first and the only opportunity to make that happen. So I stepped into that world.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, if that's what you grew up in, that's what you saw. And I can imagine, as you said, there's, all of you crammed in that little apartment. I can imagine how tough. I mean, you probably didn't know any different, but I mean, I would imagine that was a very difficult time. Were you sad about your situations? Do you remember as a kid? Were you like depressed about it, or how did you look at that?
I was not depressed. I was frustrated about it.
Okay.
I would ask my mom, if she could buy me things when I was a kid. I was the only kid in the neighborhood that didn't have the video game, and my mom was going to the Salvation Army, buying all my clothes, or I'm getting hand-me-downs. We used to line up on the weekends at the church to get pantry from food and bread, and just growing up like that and seeing, and people would make, other kids in school would make fun of me, because I had a hole in my shirt. I look poor and I wanted more. And they would frustrate me when I would ask my mom. So I would do all types of different hustles. I remember being 5 years old and just walking from door to door, collecting all the bottles and cans and just changing them for nickels in the bodega. Opening up the fire hydrant in the middle of the summer and just washing cars, doing all types of stuff just to get money, or going into people's couches and collecting all the coins. And but that was my mindset. But the drugs was something that I learned right away. It made sense mathematically, and I made a lot of money. At 19, I was making over $2 million a year.
Wait, say that again. How much were you making at 19?
I was making over $2 million a year. I was
$2 million. Wow.
Yeah, I was generating $5 million in revenue, $2 million in profit. It was a very lucrative operation.
Were you? Yeah. And, I mean, I can't imagine that, how much money of that was coming in, and you're probably seeing this going, oh my goodness, this is what your dream was, to be rich because of your circumstances growing up. Were you ever worried? Like, was there a part of you going, man, maybe I shouldn't be doing this? I mean, the money's great, or did you like not even worry about that kind of thing? Like you'd get caught or busted or go to jail. Did you not worry about those things?
Yeah, you're always worried about getting caught and going to jail. But as a youth and I feel like I didn't fully grow. My brain was not grown. I was more risk adverse. I'm just taking all types of risks, just to go wild and crazy. And that's the lifestyle that
So did your mom know that you were doing this? Did she have an idea that you were selling drugs?
Yeah, I mean, I got arrested at 13 years old for selling weed. And, she got the call from the cops, because I was a juvenile. And so that was when she first found out. And then it just started escalating from there. Nobody could stop me. My number one excuse and excuse to her was like, "Are you going to give me money?" Like, no. So I'm going to do it how I get it. So that was my mindset.
Yeah. Well, so at 19, was that when you got arrested and caught up, where you had to go to prison for 7 years?
23 years old.
Oh, you were 23 when that happened. Yep. Okay. So at 23, everything kind of caught up to you finally, right? I'm sure you were being watched for a while and tracked down, because obviously when you're making that much money, you're obviously dealing with some high players, high level people. So you get arrested, you get convicted, and you get sentenced to 7 years. How did that feel when you heard 7 years?
I was happy.
Really?
I was happy. I was facing 15 on life. It was my third felony.
Okay.
And so for me, it was like, wow, I got another shot at life. I got arrested at the, I don't know, God made it happen that I got arrested at the right time. Because that same year I was going back and forth to court. The laws, Rockefeller laws, which were mandatory drug laws back then, were changed due to Governor Spitzer cheating on his wife with a prostitute. He got caught up.
Yeah.
And the Lieutenant Governor, Governor Patterson at the time, stepped in, and that was the first thing he put into play. And so this was 2009 when I'm going back and forth to court.
Okay.
And I got this opportunity, and I'm like, when they told me 7 years, I smiled. I was like, guilty.
Wow.
Yeah. And my lawyer was like, the best deal I could get was 12 years. And so they basically gave me 7 years with 5 parole.
Okay. Wow. So you go to prison, and this is where the story gets pretty amazing, and again, I know we're just barely touching on what you went through, but I really want to get into, I think you got put into the health unit, if I understand correctly, in prison, where they, that's where you heard the news that you could probably die within the next 5 years. Tell our listeners what happened there.
Yeah. So when you go to prison, they take blood exams, they give you a whole physical. So when I went into prison, that's when I didn't see a doctor for so long. My lifestyle, I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes. I was smoking like 50 cigar of marijuana every day. I'm just like smoking nonstop and drinking. So I was super unhealthy.
And you weighed what, 230 pounds?
231 pounds when I went in.
Yeah.
And doctors in there were like, your cholesterol levels are through the roof, and and I was like, what? I was only 24 when they told me that. And I was like, no, I'm good. And there was like, if you continue living the lifestyle that you're living, you could probably die of a heart attack within 5 years.
Wow.
And I was
at
like,
23.
At 23. Yeah. And so I was shocked. I didn't believe it at first, but when I went back to my cell and I started contemplating, and I'm like, because they gave the same diagnosis to an old man. He was like 75 years old. And they brought me and him down to the medical unit. And they brought us to a room one at a time. We're walking back to our cell block. He told me, hey, did they tell you had high cholesterol? And I was like, yeah. And he got the same diagnosis. So being 24 years old at that time when they told me that, and being compared to a 75-year-old, I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. Excuse my language. I gotta do something about this.
Yeah, you're in trouble. Well, so here you are, you're facing 7 years. You hear this diagnosis that you could die, in the next 5 years if you don't change your lifestyle. Is this when you started realizing, Coss, that you needed to change your life, like not only get healthier, but did you start having these thoughts of, I need to change my life, I got to quit dealing drugs, I got to do something different? When did all that started to change in prison? It was
not towards the end of my incarceration. When I went inside, I basically had the same mindset as like, all right, I'm in prison. I got caught because I sold drugs the wrong way, so there's something I have to fix, and go back. And I was still operating while I was incarcerated. I was still dealing drugs. I started sneaking in drugs. The hustle didn't stop. And the mindset didn't stop until the end of my incarceration. I was about to be released in 2 months. I had this officer call me down and he said, "Can you go out to the medical unit?" And I was like, "All right, going out to the medical unit." I'm thinking at that time I'm on the waiting list. I think I was waiting like 2 years to see a dentist. So I'm like, finally they call me down because you have 2,000 inmates. The dentist only comes like once a week.
Wow.
So I'm excited. I'm like, I'm gonna get my teeth cleaned before I go home.
Yeah.
So I get called down. I brush my teeth. I run over, and this officer says, "Hey, this is not. You're not here for a dentist appointment here. You're here for a drug exam. Like, they do random drug testing."
Oh man.
So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm not using anything. I was clean at that time. And so I get on the wall. He starts searching me. He starts searching me extremely aggressively, where he went in between my legs and just grabbed me up, and I twitched my body. And as soon as I twitched my body, he punched me behind my head.
Oh,
and
man.
He said, "Today's not my day. Don't fuck with me." He knocked me out. I got back up, turned around on the officer to avoid another hit, and he pulled the alarm. And once that basically they have this button on their walkie-talkies, and it's called a pin. And as soon as they press the pin, the whole alarm for the whole prison goes off. Every inmate has to hit the ground, face the ground. And so I told him, I was like, "Why did you do that? I'm not doing it." He's like, get down. So he strikes me again, knocks me out. About a half a dozen officers come to the scene. They beat the crap out of me. They throw me into solitary confinement. And now I'm devastated. Devastated because I had only 2 months left. And now this officer is saying that I had attempted to assault him. I'm facing 3 more years in prison. I'm stressed out of my mind. I'm in 24-hour lockdown. I'm pacing back and forth. And I remember being in that cell for a couple of hours there. Officer comes to my door and opens up my food slot and passes me a paper pen and an envelope. So you're allowed to write letters. So I grabbed that. I'm like, I need to write a letter to my family, letting them know I'm in trouble. I need to get out of the situation. And I closed that letter, and then I realized I had no stamp to send out this letter with. You're not allowed to receive or send any stamped letter out until 30 days in solitary confinement. And so I'm devastated because I'm like, all right, I got 2 months left. Like, this is going to be a crazy process. I need to get out of the situation because I'm supposed to be released soon. And I remember sitting in my bed and just banging my head on the wall and just stressed out of my mind, feeling hopeless. I then received a letter from my sister a couple days afterwards, and my sister's like super religious. Like, I call her Mother Teresa's child. She writes. Yeah, she like reads the Bible every day, and
that's
just
awesome.
Somebody that's very devoted and great. But she writes me this letter and tells me like, "Hey, I want you to. We found out where you're at. I called the prison. Everything's gonna be all right. All I want you to do is read Psalm 91 from the Bible." And I was like, Psalm 91? I don't need no Psalm 91. I need a lawyer. Like, I don't need God. Who needs God? God is not gonna help me. So I'm sitting there. I throw the letter in the corner of my cell. A couple days went by. I was bored out of my mind. I decided to pick up the Bible because that's the only thing that you can have in prison is your religious items, whether it's your Quran or Torah. That's the only thing that they can't take away. So it followed me to my solitary confinement unit, and I decided to pick up the Bible and read Psalm 91 out of boredom. And I read it, and it states, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my shelter and my fortress, my God in who I trust." And as soon as I read those words, a stab fell out of my Bible. this. There was a stamp between the some pages.
No way.
And I needed that stamp to send out this letter to my family, letting them know the whole situation.
Oh man.
There was I had so much chills, goosebumps ran down my body. I felt like there was something crazy happening. And I got to send out the letter. I eventually ended up doing an extra year in prison, but while I was in solitary confinement, I got the chance to read the whole Bible from front to back. And I started realizing what I was doing was wrong. I was not only affecting my family, I was not only affecting the people I sold drugs to, I was affecting their families, and I was creating this whole web of destruction. And I said, how can I get back to society in a more positive way? And I just started reflecting on ideas. And the first idea that popped up was like, I'm already helping the inmates in the yard get fit, work out. We're building this camaraderie. I want to build this as a business and, train people to get fit. And so I started writing on my business plan in solitary confinement. I ended up doing an extra year in prison behind that situation.
What? A year in solitary?
No, I did a total of 8 months.
8 months. Okay.
And then I was released a year later.
Okay.
And I basically did what I wrote there. I did what I wrote in that business plan. And while I was sitting, when I came home, I basically started everything in the park. Went back to the same neighborhood, went back to my family, and just bootstrapped the whole business and made it happen.
You cut out there a little bit.
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can now. Yeah. So you bootstrapped the whole, as you got out, you had this business plan of helping people, get in shape and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and our mission today is to hire people coming out of the prison system to give them a second chance and be trainers and work at our facility.
Wow!
If you hear the background, that's the trainers. They're about to start a class. So
yeah, I want our listeners to know right now, Coss is close to the roof of this former Jewish synagogue in New York City. So
turn CONBODY.
Turn CONBODY.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. You mentioned you hire these people who have been through prison, been through the system. There's a certain man, I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Is it Sultan Malik? Yeah. And he was in prison for 14 years, 7 of that in solitary confinement. Is that correct?
Yep. So
tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah. Sultan was our first employee. Sorry, you hear me there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm receiving. I got to jump on another call soon. But briefly about Sultan, he did 14 years in prison, 7 years in solitary confinement. He was my first employee. Somebody that came home and was desperate to get a second chance. I met him while he was on welfare and receiving public assistance, and he was asking assistance to write a resume up. I was volunteering at the Goodwill at the time, doing an internship, helping people write resumes. And so he said to my desk, and he's like, I'm training people in the park. I just came home. I did 14 years. And I was like, I'm back in my mind. I was like, you have to come check out what I'm doing. And I gave him my card. And that same night he came and he was like, wow, I want to be a part of this. So he became my first employee.
Oh, really? Okay.
And now we've trained over 50 people coming out of the prison system to be our trainers. And again, you mentioned this in the beginning, we have a 0 recidivism rate.
Which is amazing. So you mentioned too, I think in one of your talks, where 76% of inmates return back to prison.
Yeah. Hopefully you can hear me here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Sure. You're good.
Yeah, so the national recidivism rate is 76%. That means 3 out of 4 people that are coming out of the prison system will return back. And so I think the proudest stat that we have at CONBODY is that we have that at 0.
Yeah.
And I feel like our secret sauce is that we build a family, we build a full transparency of, you're in trouble. You have someone to call, like, let's talk about it. If you have some type of issue, we build a relationship with parole officers.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's been an open conversation. It's not your normal business, and
Right.
and there's just so much much variables that you have to deal with when you're coming out of the prison system that people don't really understand. Like, coming out to a whole new world of technology. Like, I went in with a flip phone and came out with a touchscreen. I had no idea what Facebook, Instagram, Twitter was, and the people some of the people that I've hired have done over 20 years in prison. They went in with a beeper as teenagers, and came out with came out to the Jetsons,
Yeah. Wow.
Flintstones me to the Jetsons, and that's how I put it.
That's amazing. You've done a few TED Talks now, which is really impressive. I've watched all of them. You're an amazing speaker because you come from the heart. You're genuine. I think that's why everyone loves you. You said something in there. You said, imagine if you were judged by the best things that you did versus the worst things, right?
Yep.
So how do you feel? Are people now looking at you and seeing you for the good things you're doing versus what you did in the past?
Yeah, I think the majority of people do. But there are people that glorify, my business that I had in the back.
Yeah.
In the beginning. I tell them my first business got acquired by the, by the feds, and you don't want that to happen. So, you try to look at me, for what I'm doing right now. And most people, I get saluted for all the work that I've done now, and the people that we've, been helping elevate in the last couple of years.
Yeah. How have you noticed, like, not only are you in better shape now, obviously, and you're doing all these good things, how has it helped with your mental and your emotional health?
So mentally, I mean, working out for me is meditation. There's different forms of meditation, but when I do a class at CONBODY, I'm working out by myself. Like, it's just a time where I'm not on my phone. I'm just paying attention to my body. I'm focusing on, breathing and pushing my body to another level where I want to take it. And every day that I work out, there's some days I take days off, but I feel relieved, and I feel like I could breathe. I feel freedom. I feel happy. And accomplished.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm so impressed with what you're doing and your desire to make, to do good things versus what you were doing before. And you can just tell that you're so happy, the way you carry yourself. You got a glow about you. If there's someone listening to you right now, Coss, who's struggling, maybe they're caught up in the drug world, or they're just having, they're in a dark place. What advice could you give that one person right now? What would you tell them?
I would tell them everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. Whatever dark space, whatever negative state you're in, just know that this shall pass. Breathe in, breathe out. It's not going to last forever. Everything is temporary.
Yeah. Well, and what a better person to tell us that, because, I would imagine 8 months in solitary confinement probably felt like 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, what are your future plans? Obviously you got CONBODY, you want to take it to the next level, and it's really starting to blow up now. Is that where you see yourself for the next, foreseeable future, is doing that?
Yeah, I want to franchise this opportunity. We have an online platform where people work out with us virtually, live streaming, and are watching our pre-recorded videos from all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue growing that part of the business. But yeah, I want to also franchise. This is how I could help affect and give more opportunities to people coming out of the prison system.
I love that.
Bringing it to local towns, cities. That's the goal.
No, I love that. So what is your family and friends just blown away of the transformation you've gone through?
Yeah, my family, they didn't believe I was coming home to do the right thing. They saw me, going in and out as a juvenile, as a kid. They seen me, just in a spiral that they didn't believe I was going to come out and do the right thing. Because there's been times where I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to do something, and I failed, and I was frustrated at the fact that I couldn't get a job. I was being discriminated. I felt everything was stacked against me. But when I came home and I kept my mind dedicated to it, and it took a while, but I proved to them that I was doing the right thing, and now they're proud. I'm also proud of my family too. They've been able to accomplish a lot. My brother became the city council member of the District of Manhattan 1, which is a huge political move.
Okay,
and he's doing a lot of prison advocacy as well too.
Very cool. Well, like I said earlier, you're doing a lot of great things, and I'm sure your family and friends are just not only blown away, but just very happy for you. How cool it was your sister sent you that Bible and to read that verse. Do you mind repeating that Psalms 91 again for us?
Of course. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my shelter and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. That's verse 1 and 2.
Verse 1 and 2, Psalms 91, verse 1 and 2. That's beautiful. And it's still blown away that stamp falls out.
You never know.
I
I worshiped all this money, and the cheapest item that you could probably buy today, changed my life.
Man, that is amazing. If people want to reach out to you, Coss, and learn more about CONBODY and maybe even learn more about you, what's the best place for them to go to do that?
So you can hit me up on Instagram, like you did, Todd, at CONBODY. You could check us out at conbody.com if you want to work out with us virtually, live streaming, or if you're in the New York City area and you want to stop by and take a class, you could just come to the Lower East Side and 121 Willow Street.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I encourage all our listeners to go check you out, check out your website, check out all the good things you're doing, learn more about your story. Because again, like I said at the beginning, if you think you can't change your circumstances or better your life, think again, man. You're a living example of that. Anyone can go through anything and change their life for the better. And it's just inspiring to me, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. If you're ever out in Utah, like we talked about, please hit me up. I can really help, maybe even get some things going. I got some connections out here that may help you. And, but anything I can do to further your cause,
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate you. And so thank you for joining the show. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. Coss Marte, please check him out. He's an amazing person, and I really do admire him. And I love you guys for tuning in week after week. And until next time, guys, thanks again, Coss. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for the background noise.
No, you're good, man. Hey, I'm just glad I got you, man. It's a blessing I've got you today, man. You're the best.
Awesome.